This is the scene at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library at this hour. The very last of the mourners have filed past Mr. Reagan's casket before he is flown to Washington, D.C. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Christie.
And I'm Mesta Tro. More than 105,000 mourners have come to Simi Valley to pay their respects to the former president.
Fox's Caroline Shively has details from the Reagan Presidential Library.
Reagan's casket travels across the country to Washington, D.C. for 3 days of tributes and a national day of mourning. The passing of Ronald Wilson Reagan has brought tens of thousands of people together here in Simi Valley, California, strangers finding a bond in their grief.
It's been an honor to meet all the people in the line and have a chance to talk with people that have a similar feeling for the presidency.
Some very recognizable faces also came here to the Presidential Library, including actresses Bo Derek and Morgan Fairchild. Presidential candidate John Kerry and other politicians also came to pay their respects.
He had that cowboy grace, he had that great class, he had that way of getting things done. He restored the nation's pride.
Wednesday morning, Mr. Reagan's casket will fly out of Point Mugu Naval Air Station to Washington, D.C. The preparations are already underway for when Mr. Reagan's body will lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda. His eulogy will be given by President Bush at the National Cathedral on Friday.
He understood that a leader is a person who sets clear goals and makes decisions based upon principles that are etched in his soul.
At 1:15 Eastern Time on the afternoon of the funeral, the National Cathedral will toll its bells 40 times to honor the 40th president. Other churches have said they too will toll their bells at the exact same moment.
The Reagan family has learned of this and is very touched by this gesture. I encourage other churches across the country to participate to make this truly a national tribute.
Mr. Reagan actually planned much of the details of the funeral and burial service himself during the first year of his presidency. In Simi Valley, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Meanwhile, preparations are continuing tonight in Washington, D.C. for the arrival of the former president's casket. Dozens of troops, including members of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force, rehearsing for their roles in tomorrow's ceremony. The funeral procession will make its way from Andrews Air Force Base to the Capitol building. Reagan's flag-draped casket will be then carried by horse-drawn wagon. It will be followed by a riderless horse. The boots and the stirrups will be turned backwards to symbolize the commander's look back at the troops he will never again command. Meanwhile, here at home, Mayor Dick Murphy has declared Friday a day of remembrance here in San Diego. All non-essential city offices will be closed to allow employees to remember Reagan's legacy in California and the nation. Both Camp Pendleton and Marine Corps Air Station Miramar personnel will honor Ronald Reagan Friday with a large caliber 21-gun salutes.
As a man who lived much of his life in the public eye, there are countless images of Ronald Reagan. But tonight in a Fox 6 exclusive, we have some of the most candid film ever taken of the former president and the man behind the camera. Our Jim Patton joins us now with the story of the Hollywood Reel. Jim.
Esta, in the late 1940s, when television was just beginning to blossom, there was a newspaper photographer by the name of Coy Watson who had an idea about using a movie camera to put big stars on the small screen.
There they are.
By television's most famous reporter-photographer team.
If you were lucky enough to own a TV in the early 1950s, you might have come across a segment of the Hollywood Reel.
Gloria Swanson, Ronald Reagan, Kirk Douglas, Eddie G. Robinson, you name it, the biggest names in the business.
And Coy Watson filmed them all. Along with his partner, Erskine Johnson, who served as narrator, Coy produced candid vignettes of more than 50 of Hollywood's biggest film stars who were anxious for an avenue into the new world of television.
The publicity men for these people and the people themselves were calling us.
Including one for Ronald Reagan.
I said, sure, Ronald Reagan, he was a guy beginning. He wasn't as well known as Kirk Douglas and some of the other people, but he was a nice guy and I liked him.
Coy says he knew Reagan had a ranch in the San Fernando Valley and decided it would be a good place to film. And the actor himself had a sense of how the session should go.
He says, these are my friends. These horses are my friends. And I would like to get you, just if you want to take a picture of me, the natural thing to do would be to get me with my friendly horses.
And here are two of them, Song Parade and the granddaughter of Man o' War.
Coy says the shoot only took about 45 minutes, but the result was a lifelong treasure which Reagan requested a copy of some 40 years later. Coy was happy to provide it and received a special memento in return.
As I expected, knowing Ronnie for the kind of a man that he was, I got the nicest letter from him.
If Coy now has one regret, it's that when he produced Ron Reagan's segment of Hollywood Real, he wavered from his usual 4-minute time frame.
To 2 minutes, I'm ashamed to say, because some of the other stars were better known, and I gave them 4 minutes. I surrendered, Ronnie. I didn't realize he was going to be such a big man.
Coy, who knew? Now, Coy, who is now 91, says he started Hollywood Real just because he thought it would be fun. It also turned out to make him a good living as he earned some $1,400 a week. And keep in mind, that was in the late 1940s, early 50s. Though he says the stars who were featured in the segments, including Ronald Reagan, did so just for the televised publicity.
What an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Was
Right.
Coy able to do any other projects with President Reagan at all?
Well, he said he interviewed him a few times earlier on, like way back in 1933. And at that time, Reagan was a Democrat. So he says kind of tongue-in-cheek, that's how he knew he would look good with horses, because he liked that donkey so much. So,
Love that.
good.
just great story.
And so Kirk Douglas and so many others.
A
and-
long list, more than 50 of them, I think 52 in all, and it would be tremendous to have an entire segment just on all of these. You're looking at these, Yvonne DiCarlo, I mean, just
Oh, wow.
all of these
Oh.
people being very candid.
I think that
He's
guy's got a
all that.
movie right there. I think he's
Seriously.
got a
Absolutely.
serious
Yeah,
movie.
great
Thank you
stuff.
so much,
What
Jim.
a fun report.
Sure.
Thanks
Fun.
a lot, Jim.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks.
that. Well, Fox 6 News and Fox in the Morning will have complete coverage of the week's events honoring President Reagan. Tomorrow, as Reagan's casket is taken to the U.S. Capitol to lie in state, and Friday, of course, for the funeral at the National Cathedral and burial at the Reagan Library. A DUI suspect is behind bars tonight.